Hey everyone, let's jump right into this explainer and completely demystify the universal building blocks that are secretly powering pretty much all of our favorite stories. Welcome to a deep dive into the mechanics of storytelling. Because whether you're digging into an ancient myth, watching a massive blockbuster movie, or just enjoying a beautiful little animated short online, there's actually a hidden architecture right beneath the surface. And today we're going to break down exactly how these narratives are built, step by step.
So what do Luke Skywalker, a magically transported Japanese teenager, and a lonely boy finding a mysterious portal all have in common? I know, it sounds like the setup to a really weird joke, but I promise you, it's actually the key to understanding global narratives. There is this profound, hidden connection between Western cinema blockbusters, Eastern anime tropes, and even the smallish modern micro-stories. Beneath it all, they are beating with the exact same narrative heart.
Here's our quick roadmap for the explainer today. We'll start by unpacking the monomyth, then look at crossing the threshold, move right into archetypes and companions, tackle navigating the unknown, and finally wrap up with the journey's end.
Starting off with Section 1, the monomyth explained, focusing on Joseph Campbell's universal template.
So Campbell basically took this massive, sweeping concept of human storytelling and broke it down into three major, really logical acts. Step 1 is the departure. This is where the hero is separated from their comfortable, everyday, ordinary world. Step 2 is the initiation, which is essentially a descent into trials and profound personal transformation. And then Step 3 is the return. That's where the hero brings the ultimate boon, or the big reward, back home forever changed. It is this perfect, continuous loop of psychological growth.
Moving on to Section 2, Crossing the Threshold, where we explore portals and gateways to the unknown.
Let's talk about portal fantasy. It's this fascinating plot device where characters physically enter a self-contained alternate reality through some kind of gateway. Think about Alice tumbling down the rabbit hole or the kids stepping through the wardrobe into Narnia. These portals aren't just cool visual effects, right? They're profound catalysts for world building. They essentially strip away the characters' everyday advantages and force them to navigate completely unfamiliar, magical rules.
And this brilliantly highlights the cross-cultural synthesis of storytelling. Western portal fantasy is very often a one-way trip into a strictly contained magical space. But let's compare that to Japanese isekai. Now, isekai literally translates to another world, and it's a massively popular subgenre where a character is transported or even reincarnated into a totally new reality. But here's the twist. Unlike Western tropes where the hero is usually powerless at first, in isekai, the character usually gains formidable new powers to survive in what's often a game-like medieval setting.
To really anchor this abstract concept, let's look at a gorgeous modern micronarrative. Picture a high-quality 3D animated Pixar-style story. Our protagonist is a sweet, kind 7-year-old boy named Ian. One night in his peaceful green village, his world changes. He crosses his threshold. He discovers Lumi, who is this shy, small, glowing star that accidentally fell from the magical night sky and landed right by a river. Ian decides to help her find her way home. And boom, right there we are seeing the monomyth in action.
Which brings us to Section 3, Archetypes and Companions, or the psychological cast of characters. Because heroes rarely walk alone, right? These character archetypes map directly to functional roles that actually drive the plot forward. You've got the mentor, who guides the hero, often showing up as that classic wise old wizard trope. You have the trickster, providing comic relief, usually playing the wisecracking sidekick who keeps the mood light when things get intense. And of course, the shadow. That's the main antagonist, basically embodying the traits the hero has to overcome, very often taking the form of a dark lord. But it gets really interesting when you compare two highly dynamic roles, like the shapeshifter and the trickster. The shapeshifter is constantly crossing the line between ally and enemy, representing inner transformation and shifting loyalties. Meanwhile, the trickster is there to offer emotional support through humor. Now, across global myths, these roles can actually blend beautifully. For example, in Chinese mythology, the silver fox is this incredibly cunning and charming figure that perfectly embodies that transformative duality. They act as both a tricky shapeshifter and a wise guide.
Bringing it back to our beautiful animated 3D story, Ian's new companion is, of course, Lumi. Instead of being afraid of this glowing thing he found by the river, he talks to her, realizes she's alive, and they quickly become friends. In terms of storytelling mechanics, Lumi is doing double duty here. She acts as the herald, signaling the start of Ian's adventure, and she's his steadfast ally as they team up to get her safely back to the sky.
All right, Section 4, Navigating the Unknown, looking at the road of trials and the innermost cave.
Now, it's absolutely crucial to look at our source material impartially and recognize that this journey changes a lot depending on perspective. Literary scholars have spent a lot of time outlining the heroine's journey. Characters like Jane Eyre or Psyche from myth undergo trials that are uniquely different from the traditional male monomyth. Their journeys are often about navigating a society without any starting privilege, so the focus shifts heavily onto internal awakening and personal growth, rather than, say, an external quest to go find a magical sword.
This dynamic is perfectly captured by the artist and illustrator Alice Michi Lee. She notes that for marginalized or underprivileged characters, the journey isn't just about bringing back a magical elixir. As she puts it, when you have oppressed groups, all you can hope for is to get half as far by working twice as hard. It's a really fascinating modern re-examination by scholars of Joseph Campbell's original structure, which, let's be honest, has some inherent privilege built into it. It just goes to show how storytelling frameworks have to evolve to reflect different societal realities.
But regardless of the specific type of journey, every protagonist eventually hits a wall. They confront the ultimate obstacle, the Shadow, or the Threshold Guardian. This represents the ultimate antagonistic force in the story, literally a warning to the hero that extreme danger lies ahead. This encounter usually takes place in the darkest, most dangerous spot, what Campbell called the belly of the whale or the innermost cave.
So how do our specific heroes handle their road of trials? Well, Aion and Lumi go on this heartwarming little adventure through a dark forest. But rather than battling some terrifying monster, their innermost cave is a daunting physical journey. They have to climb a tall hill, guided along the way by these beautiful glowing fireflies. It's a magical, highly emotional test of their friendship and resolve.
And that leads us to our final part, Section 5, The Journey's End, focusing on return and ultimate transformation.
The final mechanics of the monomyth can actually play out in a few different ways. Sometimes the hero straight up refuses to return, preferring the magical world they found. Sometimes they have to flee in a magic flight, but ultimately they cross that return threshold. And the absolute most important step here is becoming the master of the two worlds. This means the hero successfully takes all their magical, transformative experiences and integrates them to directly benefit their mundane, everyday reality. They earn the freedom to live without fear. Which brings us right to the uplifting, emotional conclusion of Aion and Lumi's story. Up at the top of that hill, Lumi starts shining brighter and brighter, and the night sky just opens up with this magical light. As she slowly floats upward, she thanks Aion by lighting up the entire village like a beautiful festival of stars. Aion looks up, smiling, as Lumi becomes a permanent new shining star in the sky, twinkling right back at him. That beautiful integration makes him the true master of his two worlds. And that brings me to my final, provocative thought for you to take away from this explainer today. What kind of story are you currently living, and what threshold will you choose to cross next? Because whether we realize it or not, we are all the protagonists of our own narratives, completely surrounded by mentors, shadows, and daily thresholds. I really hope this breakdown has given you the tools to identify the hidden mechanics of your own hero's journey. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and keep exploring your world.